All right, so I think we can make a start. So firstly, welcome. This is Tivan's first investor briefing for the year. I'm Grant Wilson, Executive Chair. I'm in Sydney today at Earth AI's studios. This is a newfangled technology this time around and giving a test. And yeah, looking forward to, I think, hopefully a very informative session to start the year. For those that have been following Tivan's journey over the past couple of years, you'll know there was a lot of changes in the fourth quarter. You'll also know that we're very much committed to open and transparent communications at Tivan. So we're kicking off the year with one of our investor briefings. There'll be four main sections today, a couple of slides on sort of firm-wide aspects. And this is partly to cater for the new audience. We know that we've got a lot more people now following the stock in the room today, I can see as well. Many new shareholders as well, all of which is, frankly, really encouraging. So there'll be a little bit of contextual stuff at the start. Then we'll move into a couple of key project updates, then a couple of corporate updates. And then I want to reserve as much time as I can today for Q&A, up to probably half an hour, because we have received a lot of questions. And again, I think this reflects all of the new information that came through, particularly late in Q4. So we'll wrap that all up within an hour. There'll be a replay tonight. We know the replays are getting a lot of views as well. So part of this is just to log the start of the year. So when people see where we get to this year, they've got something to reference back to. So when the slides come up, and you've got them on the ASX anyway, the first slide that you'll see is to do with our redefined corporate mission. And so at the AGM in mid-November, we went from our sort of stated mission, which was initially to build grid storage through a vanadium pathway, to a map, essentially. And a map's a great device because it's really easy for people to understand. And we redefined the corporate mission of Tivan formally at the AGM, which is to build a company of strategic importance across Northern Australia. So it's really simple. And I think when you're building a proper company, it is actually important not just to have a mission, but to have a mission which everyone can understand and which is clearly differentiated from others. And the second slide in the deck is very much about that differentiation. We spent quite a bit of time discussing the comparative advantages that we have at Tivan. And we've lived this journey now for a couple of years, and it's become very clear to us what those advantages are. And here we're talking about other companies in the sector, and also, the pathways, I think, that we've secured now in Asia with fluorite, which is obviously a new critical mineral for Australia, but also leveraging things such as our governmental relationships, our standing with traditional owners in the Kimberley, our incredible team, the incredible acquisitions that we've made early on at Tivan and the way that we've been able to finance and structure those, the penetration we have in Asia, our access to large-scale capital, which we've demonstrated already at Christmas, as well as all the facilitation raises that we've got through in the past couple of years. So when you look at that chart in terms of our comparative advantages, it's quite straightforward, but I think it's quite powerful. And we think it will now endure. So the two things that really came out of the AGM were those two things alone. The first is that we've got a really simple, well-defined corporate mission, as it were, very distinctive. There's no one else up in Central Australia or Australia trying to build a company such as us. And then secondarily, the progress that we've made, and it's demonstrable progress as well, has enabled us to define a whole subset of self-reinforcing comparative advantages, which we now think will be durable. Like, this is not something I think we're going to come back to in 1 year's time, in 2 years' time. I think that when we look at where Tivan gets to something again this year and the next couple of years, those two images will be static. Now, I say that with one caveat, because I did say this at the AGM. On the map, there is one omission at the moment, and we hope to be able to define Project X in the timeframes that I mentioned at the AGM, which is January and February. So we're working away on that. It is sensitive. I know that it's taken on sort of a life of its own online. Everyone's sort of speculating as to what Project X might be. I ask everyone just to be patient. I don't want to add to the speculation today because it is a sensitive situation. Obviously, there's other people involved. And so I think I can share that with all the speculation that's online, still no one is close to the mark. And perhaps the only other thing I would say is that when we do announce this, which I think hopefully the end of this month, certainly mid-Feb, around there, it is a really significant initiative for the company. It's something that we've worked on for a long time. It's something that does leverage those same comparative advantages that I just referred to. So when it does land, please understand it in that framing. For those that have followed, I guess, my journey at the company as well, you'll know that one of my sort of universal principles is competitive tension. And it also reflects that. I'm always sort of thinking, certainly in this case, a couple of years down that track, and making sure that we've got as much leverage as we can have in negotiating situations in terms of the optionalities to build the company going forward. So that all might sound a little bit cryptic for those people that are trying to pick it apart. The main message I would say is just a bit more patience, understands that it's sensitive, understand that it's important, understand that it will sort of fill out our map. And hopefully in the next month or so, the big reveal will happen. So just give me 1 sec on the slides. I'm sharing slides now. Thank goodness. Sorry about that. There was quite some ad-libbing there as usual. So let me now, yes, that's our map. And we talked about this at the AGM, so I won't dwell here. And our competitive advantages, which I just addressed. Okay. One of the other sort of defining features now with Tivan is that we do have, effectively 5 projects underway. And they're shown here in terms of this Lassonde curve. The Lassonde curve is just a heuristic that I introduced, I think about a year ago. In fact, I think it's one of the better tools to understand the resources sector. Like, it's actually a reasonably well-defined empirical journey for a lot of companies. Unfortunately, in the critical minerals sector, most companies get into the so-called orphan stage and they never actually ramp up. Like, the success rate for project delivery in the critical minerals sector is extremely poor, particularly in the last 5 years. So you end up with most projects just extending the orphan period and then failing, and projects just failing. With Tivan, what we're trying to do is really focus on the Speewah Fluorite Project now as sort of the tip of the spear. That's the project that can take us up the Lassonde curve aggressively and towards free cash flow. We're targeting 2027 for that. And then we're building all of these early stage opportunities, and we've got 3 listed there. These are all credible projects. We believe that's location advantages. They fit the comparative advantages that we've spoken about, and they can have a material impact on the valuation of the company. And importantly, what we're trying to do is flatten out the Lassonde curve. So perhaps the way to think about it is imagine a Lassonde curve for each of those projects, and then time shift the Lassonde curve by 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And what you end up, if you aggregate all of those Lassonde curves, is actually quite a flat line. And that's the cumulative Lassonde curve. And that would be for Tivan if we're successful in our endeavors. And you'd end up avoiding orphan periods, being able to make good decisions in terms of allocating risk capital, and continuing on a journey which enables the company to grow with confidence. And part of that is utilizing these joint venture structures, which is obviously how we're looking to fund the Speewah Fluorite Project, because it doesn't burden the head company. So JVs will become, I believe, a durable feature at Tivan. So again, this is partly for the uninitiated at Tivan, partly for those that have been following the story in terms of the strategy. It's still very much there and consistent with what I said at the AGM. And I think the progress we made last year exemplifies that. But again, what we're trying to build is a diversified critical minerals company characterized by location, proximity, and really leveraging the comparative advantages which I've articulated. Okay, so that's it for the sort of introductory section. And again, apologies for the IT glitch. I'm going to move now to 3 project updates. This is specific to some of the projects which are shown there on the Lassonde curve. Okay, the first and most important is the big announcement that we made on Christmas Eve. At the AGM, I said that we'd be looking to make this announcement before Christmas. It was part of our strategic alliance agreement back in June that we would wrap up an announcement such as this before the end of the year. I don't think people necessarily could attach full confidence to that at the AGM or even going into December, just because it was such an unlikely outcome in many ways to bring one of Japan's most revered and most respected trading houses public on terms in the same year that you've announced a project when that project's only at PFS in a critical mineral that Australia's never produced before. It's such a, I guess, unlikely empirical outcome that there was still, I think, some sort of shock when we made this announcement on Christmas Eve. Now, it reflects an enormous amount of work that we got through. And the 2 points that I'd really like to emphasize today, which probably I don't think have been fully captured online with all of the commentary that the deal did receive, and very welcome commentary as well. Like, we were very gladdened to be able to share this announcement and send all our shareholders off with a happy sort of Christmas vibe. The 2 points that I'd like to emphasize today are that we got through an incredible amount of due diligence with Sumitomo from mid-year through to Christmas. And by that, I mean the technical due diligence on the project, things like the geology, all of the work that we've done in the offtake market, their evaluation of Tivan as a company, including our team, including our project development capabilities, looking through all of the environmental portfolios, obviously coming to understand our traditional owner relationships. This all culminated in a very important site visit and week in Australia in early November. And for us to have got through that level of technical diligence as a small company, working as fast as we were in a new commodity, again, suggests and tells you, in fact, that the project's viability is extremely strong. For Sumitomo to go public on terms in such rapid time, it's highly uncharacteristic, obviously, and it does represent their first pathway to a critical minerals investment on a global basis, as I said, at the AGM. So I think shareholders should be able to take a great degree of comfort from the fact that they were prepared to do that. It's a great show of trust, but what it tells you is that a company with fantastic capabilities themselves, who's got vastly superior information than any other shareholder at the company or anything in the public domain, has signed off on this. And so I think when people step back from it, please appreciate that, the amount of work that we got through, our team got through, that they got through, and there are obviously other people involved as well, independent people, potentially other investors. And so in terms of ticking boxes, it's a huge tick, to get through that level of diligence in that amount of time is very comforting and has inspired, obviously, a lot more confidence and conviction from other parties in and around Tivan as well. The second aspect of the announcement is that, for the first time, you've got some valuation parameters to play with. And obviously, we've never had that before. And one of the reasons to front load the announcement was to signal, both on behalf of Sumitomo and Tivan, that we'd completed negotiating commercial terms and that we wanted to memorialize them at that point. Because projects mature, geology may expand, like the resource might expand, the project will continue to get de-risked, it'll become more valuable. And from our side as well, we obviously wanted to make an announcement to show to the world that this was real. And so at some point, you want to be able to say, okay, we're satisfied here, both parties, there's a meeting of minds, these are the key economic terms. We weren't in a position to make it a binding announcement out of the gates. No one really can in the critical minerals sector in Australia because you're subject to FIRB approval. It's such a sensitive sector that we're in, and it involves a foreign company making an investment in real property in Australia, in a critical sector. So we have to work our way through FIRB approval. That's a condition precedent because there's a binding condition precedent that the agreement has to be structured in the way that it was. And so with that said, you've got the economic terms there. And I know there's been, a very active debate online about what that means. So my 2 cents, and there was a very long post written by one of our major shareholders, which I more or less concur with, is that it reflects an entry point for Sumitomo into the project where they get a share, and the valuation that they're prepared to come in at is based upon all of that assessment that they did, all of their assessment of offtake markets, commodity prices, their ability to on-sell the product into Asia and to secure supply. And then on top of that, of course, they're looking to earn a return on equity. And when you build in that return of equity, you get to, their valuation for the project. So it's much higher than simply taking $60 million and dividing it by 22.5%. How high it is it's their business, frankly. But the way to think about that calculation, it's actually quite complex, is that you have to work through things such as what is the likely debt to equity ratio in the project, because that will inform the return on equity itself. You can also have debates around whether you should be using real return on equity or nominal, for example. Another important metric is whether the life of the mine will extend from 10 to 15 to potentially 20 years. So all of those things will shape the return on equity which they generate and which they're seeking to achieve, which in turn will inform the implied valuation of the project. So that is the way that they assessed the project and that we negotiated it. And without speaking out of turn at all, you can indeed think of a fair valuation on the project at this early stage of the ballpark being 500 to 700 million Australian dollars. And so we're sitting here with this opportunity to progress, this incredible opportunity to progress to binding terms over the next couple of months. We're working away furiously on that. That does include the FIRB approval process. I would flag that there is some risk in that process. Absolutely not in terms of the destination. Of course, Canberra's going to sign off on our JV. You can tell that because they've already given us the International Partnership in Critical Minerals grant. The risk that we face is actually the federal election being called early and the federal government moving into caretaker mode and the Treasurer therefore not having the ability to sign off at the right time. So there is some risk of delay, but if it's a late election, we should have enough time to work through with FIRB. And meanwhile, we're working on what's known as long-form JV agreements. And these are huge agreements which will tie Tivan and Sumitomo together for many years ahead, which is an incredible privilege that we've earned. So we're really excited about it. I was really glad to be able to deliver it. We can now say that the stock, in my view, for the first time, I'm going to say this, is demonstrably undervalued. I know the share price obviously went up quite a bit at Christmas, but because we've got a valuation framework on the table from a large respected investor who has vastly superior information, you can back out from that, even beside all the other opportunities that we have at Tivan, that the stock is now demonstrably undervalued. That's certainly my view. So how do we close that valuation gap up? Well, it's a matter of the catalysts, which I'll refer to, and just de-risking the project as we work through the closure of the binding deal. That's obviously important, but there'll be various other steps in the months and year ahead, which will progressively de-risk the project and encourage valuations to converge upon theoretical. Part of that will be resource extension. We are very likely now to head down the resource extension pathway this year. We've got meetings about that in the second half of the month. And I'd say one of the other big subsets of catalysts on the Speewah Fluorite Project is the second last dot point. Active collaboration with government agencies of Australia continues, and even Japan continues. And so the federal government has, in a sense, spoken about the importance, the national significance of our project. They've awarded us major project status, the northernmost major project in Australia. I love that data point. And they've obviously come to the table with the International Partnership Critical Minerals grant. So those two things combined do get us to FID without issuing shares, which is an incredible position to be in. But we haven't yet heard from Western Australian government, for example. We haven't yet heard from EFA, NAIF, for example. And of course, we're working with all of these parties as well. And when you have early stage success, such as we've had, it's so conspicuous. Success begets success. So I do think as the year starts to unfold, we'll see other catalysts and drivers for the project. Meanwhile, we have to, tie down home base, as it were. It's critically important that this is our flagship project, that we stay really focused on it, continue to de-risk it, continue to work as fast and execute as well as we did all the way through last year, resource the company appropriately, and start heading in the direction of project delivery and aiming as much as we can to stay on that rapid schedule that we've articulated. Again, bearing in mind, I think I said this on Twitter last week, the average delivery time now from discovery to production is 16 years, 17 years in Australia for mining projects, and we're targeting 3 to 4. So we're working 4 times faster than the average company. We can sustain that. Are there risks to schedule? Yes, but it's more to do with us making good decisions about resource extension, for example, or other forms of really optimizing the project. That will be where I think so-called delays come. And it might be they're not really delays. This is about us aiming to extract maximum value from the project in the safest way possible for our shareholders and for Sumitomo as our highly respected joint venture partner as well. So this is really where probably 80% of our efforts are. We're absolutely dedicated to it. We're really thrilled to have been able to share that important news. We've got absolute conviction that we're going ahead to binding joint venture. And of course, Sumitomo wouldn't have gone public as they did unless that was their intention as well. So I won't spend too much time on the other 2 project updates, but I know that, again, there's a lot of shareholder focus on these 2. So at least some new information here. The first is that with the Sandover Fluorite acquisition that we completed in November, we are very excited about this. It was discussed as part of the JV discussions with Japan, of course. They're excited. I mentioned that at the AGM. Tivan believed it was premature to head in the direction of right of first refusal. I know that question's come up. We want to retain this project as much as we can. We're in a really strong position to do so. We can add an enormous amount of value early stage by defining the resource. There'll be a time and a place down the track to consider such things. But the real journey for the next 6 months is firstly to announce assay results. I hope this will be early next week. Like, it's really, really close. We've got really strong conviction that these assay results will be fantastic. The map today is a new map. It shows you what we did in December, which was to try to gain a really representative sample of the strike length through extensive rock chipping. We will report all 26 assay results, of course, to ensure there's no cherry picking. The strike length is 9 kilometers, so we'll get a holistic overview of the mineralogy and the grade right across the resource as early as next week. Then we'll be in for 3 to 6 months, I believe, of resource mapping. That will involve further low disturbance activity out at Sandover in terms of soil samples, really understanding intimately all the strike lengths in the vein systems from the surface. In parallel, we'll be working with Central Land Council to secure what we secured last year at the rest of the Sandover project, which is mineral exploration deed, sacred site clearance certificates. Those 2 are absolutely foundational for us to be able to move ahead to a drill campaign. And we hope to get to a drill campaign later in the year. And that would be the point at which we can start heading in the direction of a JORC resource. And I know these questions have been asked. The optimal scenario, and this is, we always plan for the optimal, is that we are successful with Central Land Council and traditional owners in working through these very sensitive processes. And please do understand that they are very sensitive. And if you rush too much, if you put too much pressure on traditional owners, they can erect restricted work areas. There's many, many things that can shut you out of a project in Central Australia, especially. So finding that right balance through the first half of the year, including me being out there again, frankly, late January, potentially us doing some community works in some key areas around Alice and around the east of the Sandover complex, east of Aileron. Building that trust and goodwill, which is always so characteristic of how we like to operate on country, whilst doing all of the necessary low disturbance activity at Sandover to understand what's there. And that includes, very simply, can I say, size estimates. When we get these grades back and the mineralogy back, you're going to have 2 huge ticks pretty much straight away. On size, you can have a pretty good estimate of size simply through volume by density. We know the specific gravity of calcium fluorite, and we can tell from historic drilling, well, obviously the length and the width of the veins, and in many cases the depth as well. And with those basic statistics, you can get a very good sense of how big this might be. And we believe at this point, on that very sort of back of the envelope basis, which the ASX would certainly not let us publish, but on that basic approach, and with the assay results we'll get back next week, we're going to have pretty high confidence. And at this stage, we do believe there'll be more calcium fluoride, high grade, ultra high grade calcium fluoride at Sandover than at Speewah. And we know Speewah's a world-class resource. There is a possibility that this is the best fluorite resource on the planet. And we hope to prove that thesis up in the year ahead, obviously. Now, acknowledged, there's significant disadvantages in terms of the proximity or lack of proximity of this resource to a port. But it's in our backyard. Alice is my hometown. For people that don't know, the NT government is, of course, all over us on this. It's adjacent to a project precinct that we've been working at for 18 months. So again, it is too good to be true. We're very, very excited about this pathway, and we just need to manage it. So back on the optimal, mapping for 6 months, hopefully drilling, JORC definition, 6 to 12 months. And we want to come off the Speewah Fluorite Project with the project teams having delivered feasibility study, definitive feasibility study. This is our EPCs and the project engineers that we work with. And the idea is that you've defined your JORC, at some point in the first half of next year. And the next step is taking the same project guys off Speewah that have built all of these studies and asking them to do a scoping study at Sandover, and just redeploying all the lessons learned from Speewah here, and then printing a scoping study for this, mid next year sort of thing. And just really leveraging the capacities and capabilities that we're building at Speewah here. Now, Sandover will always be a couple of years behind Speewah, which is optimal anyway. We can't do two things at once. We would never want to flood the offtake market. We want to stay focused on our pathway to cash flow. And we're not suggesting Sandover's project economics will be better than Speewah. Speewah's fantastic. And we will face, distinctively higher transit costs at Sandover. We know that, and we know, what those numbers are. But we do believe that the savings we'll have, particularly on processing with a super, super high grade, will be extremely significant. And if the fluorite market globally trends in the way that it has for 15 years, or indeed if there is a price spike because of all the geopolitical stuff that is happening and just the incredible demand from semiconductors and from EV batteries, we're going to be in this, incredible position as the owner of all of Australia's high-grade fluorite to build a second project, with a 2-3 year lag, and have two sources of revenue, and potentially be able to define an export price for an Australian fluorite industry, and to have 40, 50 years potentially of resource life on our balance sheet. And that's when you're a proper company. You are a very serious company if you're there. So these are both relatively low risk journeys, we believe. This really starts next week. And so what I said before, when I was sort of freestyling at the top, the idea that we've got these catalysts near term, there's 3 or 4, I'd say, in the next month. And this is the first one. We don't have the assay results. We don't know for sure, but we're extremely confident, and we're looking forward to announcing that next week. Next is Sandover AI Project. We want to call it the Sandover AI Project just to avoid confusion. And also because, I'm here today with Earth AI. They've invested, nearly 18 months now of really hard work with us at Sandover, deploying their incredible technology, allowing us the time to work through our big transformation from TNG to Tivan, which involved a lot of healing with the Central Land Council and with the traditional owners. But we have all the permissions now from NT government. We have a grant from the NT government. We have 2 grants. And we also have, importantly, the required sign-offs at Aileron, where the key outcrop, that whole ridge system, has been cleared from sacred sites. Now, that might sound trivial, but for people that work in the NT, I can tell you that landforms are very often the focus of sacred sites and restricted work areas. At Aileron, we are all clear. And that also would carry forward to a mine program. If we were fortunate enough for our high-grade lead and silver to convert into a deposit, we are all clear. And we're 5 kilometers from a railway. And, we're obviously due east from the Sandover Fluorite Project. So the potential for this sort of cornucopia of projects to emerge at Sandover is there, but we do not know what is under Mount Burn. And we will find out to begin with at the end of the month. So again, a second big catalyst. I can confirm that we're absolutely set on mobilizing This chart is also new because Roman's team is here communicating with the red drill lines. They're 2 high priority targets. These are the drill holes that we'll start with. The program should last about 2 months. We expect the geophysical program will be towards the end of that, because we can get more value out of the geophysical program once we understand the nature of the mineralogy and what we may have found. Again, it's lead, silver, but as we go deeper, and Roman's team is planning to drill down as far as 600 meters to understand what might be there, we may well find other things. In fact, Roman mentioned today that one of the assays we reported, we neglected to mention that there's 0.8 grams per ton of gold there as well. So we don't know. It's not a lottery ticket though. Like, it was a systematic approach that got us to here. We know that the location's incredible for project facilitation, and shareholders can now look forward to assay results in Q1 and probably early reads as well. I'll be out there at the end of the month, and we are full steam to go ahead. So those are the 3 key project updates. Our characterization of the Sumitomo JV, with great respect and thanks to Japan. I love this phrase they use. They say we're working diligently towards the close of the binding JV, and I can confirm we are working very diligently. It's a lot of work, but we're enjoying it. The mood's great, and we're excited to progress. Sandover Fluorite is, in my view, one of the most important achievements of last year. We're looking to firm that up, optimize really across 2 projects. There's going to be huge value here for us. There's no question about that in my mind. And of course, Sandover AI Project, the ability for us now to go ahead with confidence in the next couple of weeks. So look out for all that. Look out for significant announcements, I think, from government as well in the first quarter. So packaging all that up, that's a very exciting start to the year. Now, on the corporate side, very briefly, you'll know, for those that have been on the journey, that I've been very focused on trying to improve the liquidity in the stock. This was announced really at the 2023 AGM. Now, it's much easier to say that than to achieve it. And whilst we did roll out a series of initiatives, particularly around issuing things like bonus options, we've always been really aggressive with media. Obviously, the profile of the company is growing each day. We're doing innovative things on social media all the time as well. These sorts of events, you can see the viewership, the viewing's just growing and growing. But I'd say, particularly that November-December period, we had a reduction in volatility and trading, even though we were starting to trend higher around the entitlement offer window. That's very typical. When you've got an entitlement offer open for 3 months, things naturally go quiet. But then we hit this series of, A-list catalytic events, from late November to Christmas Eve. And that's really caused a really significant increase in trading volumes. It looks like it can be sustained now. I've shown, this is just an update of a chart we've published 3 times, but obviously it's a pretty explosive move. It probably understates the improvement in liquidity because this is the number of shares trading, but obviously each share is now worth like 2 and a bit times more. So if you look at dollar-based liquidity, which is the preferred metric for a lot of hedge funds, the move is really significant. And I'd say it does reflect all of the things that I've listed there. And there's more things to come. We will have brokers covering the stock, one as early as Q1, I believe. I don't want every broker in Australia to cover us, actually. And we're not interested in pay-for-play brokerage. That is a corrupt business model, and I've got absolutely no interest in that. But if there are a couple of high-quality brokers, quality research, where they're going to start to cover the stock, of course, that is welcome. Those pro formas, they tend to circulate, and it's easier for people to read and understand a narrative when they've got the surety of broker coverage as well. So I think that can be additive. I've mentioned their block trades. For the eagle eye, they'll see that that was our first block trade happened today. It was very well managed. With block trades, Tivan's not formally involved. It's not our job, but it's an absolutely bullish development in the sense that, we introduced a very willing and active buyer, an account that we respect. We're not in the market for a placement at the moment. They wanted to get set. We've got a few people that we know represent either stale hands or could be an active seller. And so when you've got an overhang of stock and you've got an active buyer, if they come together and are prepared to set a price, then a block trade can happen. And in this case, it removes a significant potential overhang on the stock, and you've got a new source of support for the stock as well. So there might be other block trades this year. I would say if those go through, that's again a source and a different type of liquidity. Very bullish for the stock, because what it's doing is helping to strengthen the register. So those sorts of things are important. Our education campaign on fluorite will continue. In fact, be redoubled, I would say, because we've got 2 projects. We're now in this market dominant position in Australia. We've earned it. We think it's a really incredible and foundational opportunity for us. And so, of course, you'll hear more about us. But I'd say, liquidity begets liquidity, and confidence begets confidence as well. And so we hope and expect that this breakout rally that we're seeing now in volumes, it's really probably only the start. If we're on track, of every confidence that the company valuation gap will close, there'll be more volumes as we get out of this quiet period. I mean, we've achieved this volume spike through the quietest period of the year. Trading volumes are normally very compressed in December and January, and yet here we are. So let's see how we go as Q1 starts to unfold. But I'd say this is a very, very important development. And I've always maintained, and I've said this 5-10 times, that most stocks have these liquidity premia, which means they trade cheap, very cheap, to potentially intrinsic value, because risk takers can't get in and out of the stock. But now they can. They're starting to. Anyway, we're achieving great things here. And when you have a rally like we saw as well, it's very important that it's sort of endorsed by higher volumes. If you have these big explosive moves and there's no volumes, as a former hedge fund manager, I would be very suspicious. When you see a huge breakout on huge volumes, that's extremely encouraging. So it's a great setup. It's a start. It's a work in progress, but very encouraging. On this topic, I wanted to include this slide because, pretty much every ASX company in the junior mining sector dodges this. And Tivan's really committed to A, transparency, and B, alignment with shareholders. That was the whole purpose of the TNG activist campaign that I led at the start, because we could see from the outside this profound misalignment between management and shareholders. 2 years in, I would say, somewhat depressingly, that I think it's pretty endemic and systemic in the sector. When I look around the junior resources sector, nothing is acute as what I walked into as TNG, but absolutely it's the case. And I know this because I've had employment consultants sort of pitch their wares to me and to Tivan. And I can't believe, I really can't believe, given where I came from, the malpractice that goes on in executive comp, especially. And it is these performance rights, which I railed against from the start. And so I wanted to explain the way I structured my comp, but also to contextualize it in the sense that our board, our really highly regarded board, sat down mid last year and redesigned and went through everything once again, and even looking at peers. And we all concluded practically independently that peers aren't really that helpful for Tivan, because we don't want to follow what they're doing. We don't. And particularly when it comes to executive compensation, what it invariably involves is a grossly inflated salary, which is not at risk, exit rights when you terminate, again, not at risk, short-term bonuses generally in cash, again, not at risk, or in shares, these performance rights. And how are those performance rights structured? Typically, they come up with some nominal performance hurdle, which will involve starting a drill campaign or delivering a study, something which is easily achievable and which will not in any way be relevant to the share price, may even be bearish. And they'll achieve this. They'll issue the performance rights to themselves, and they'll dump those performance rights on the market. And on the cycle goes. So what this chart shows, or endeavors to show, is the typical payoff structure for these performance rights. That's the horizontal, so diagonal line. Now, in a year where the average executive presides over a share price going nowhere, zero, they still get paid these performance rights, and they take the new shares and they dump them on market. And they call that alignment. That's not alignment. And worse, when the share price goes down, they do the same thing. So you've got a situation where the share price is going down, everyone's basically losing, except for the executives involved in driving that underperformance. And so the red line especially is it's not a performance right. It's actually a non-performance right. And that is an industry standard. They've got rights for non-performance. So if you look at what I did with my comp, that's the blue line. And yeah, this was agreed independently with the board, as it should be, in the middle of last year, where I basically said, listen, I think I'll be able to deliver X, Y, Z into the end of the year. The board was cognizant that I was on this journey, having authored the change campaign and taken a lot of risk, financial risk, in doing so. But basically what I said to the board was, if the share price doesn't go up, I want nothing. You know, my not at risk salary, which is very low versus peers, is all I need and all I deserve. If it goes up, then there should be a formula, and at some point it should taper off. And that's what's happened. It's quite likely now that I'll achieve maximum payout, I would say, based on that formula. And, you know, I'll be paying tax on that, and I may sell some shares to finance the tax. But otherwise, I'll be holding the shares. I'm not going to be dumping them. I believe in what I'm doing here, and I believe in the company. So I'd ask shareholders today just to step back and reflect on those simple observations. Compare and contrast what we're doing at Tivan to any other company in the sector, particularly that chart. You'll see again and again executives just taking the piss, basically, endorsed by management and protected by, you know, various other mechanisms, lawyers, employment consultants, tax consultants, creating an industry standard, which I believe is not just suboptimal, it's profoundly unfair and it's profoundly misaligned. So Tivan basically just ripped up that textbook. We've gone our own way on it. It looks highly different. In the years ahead, you know, I think my own scheme will probably look something like this. And importantly, I think the board wanted to emphasize as well the team, the project team. We've got an incredibly talented young group of people that we want to keep at the company for the duration, delivering project after project after project. And invariably with these executive compensation schemes, it all just goes to the senior guys and they don't do anything. They lose money for everyone except for themselves. In our case, it's a highly performance-driven culture for myself, for other senior executives, and then for the project team and for the larger team we'll build this year, very focused on that skin in the game and vesting rights out in 2026, 27, 28, so that they feel that they're participating in the value that they're creating. That's very fair, it's very appropriate, and it's right at the bedrock of what we're building at Tivan. So rant over here, but I tell you what, the more I get into this sector, the worse I believe it is, not the better. It's really, really bad. Okay. And our org chart to end on a happy note. Just the new circles are the new people at the team. So big welcome to Maddie in Darwin and to Tammy in Perth. Really fantastic recruits from us. Moving so fast, we don't have photos yet. We will be building out the exploration component of geology aggressively as the next step. I also, before I leave this chat and get into the Q&A, I just want to mention the importance of Stefan here as well. We are heading towards project delivery. Stefan is probably the most renowned project delivery engineer on the planet. He's deeply involved with us still, and at the moment with me, in terms of working through project delivery models and conceptualizing how we're going to build it, how we're going to impose governance, how we're going to structure contracts and all the rest of that. And so the team is holistically defined. It's been structured, you know, for a reason, but again, it's all orientated about achieving the goals. And we'll see, I think, many new hires this year. And so for today, just a big welcome to Maddie and to Tammy. Okay, now Q&A. I have gone over a bit on the content, partly because that glitch. So I will do my best. The way that we've done the Q&A in the past, and today will reflect that as well, is to ask the questions, can be online, can be to our email, group them, you know, have the pseudonymous author of the question listed there to promote that accountability. I'm not going to read all this out. I'm just going to capture the general theme and move on to the next one and aim to wrap up, as I said, within an hour. But I do believe in this important feedback mechanism. I know there's really great engagement with the stock now. We encourage it. We are accessible. If you've got burning questions, you can write to us anytime. What's instructive here, I think, is the nature of the questions that people are asking, perhaps even more so than my answers, because I've already provided a lot of new content today. So that's the framework for these questions. Okay, so a couple of minutes on each topic. Global supply chain, huge topic. The comments I made at the AGM are instructive here. I really believe that we're going to see major changes in the tectonic plates in Asia under the Trump administration. In terms of the key theme here, asking whether Japan and Korea are serious about responding to that. Yes, they already were, particularly Japan, which was one of the reasons we, flagged Japan as true north from the start. But you can see it. You can see it with Project Rapidus in semiconductors, and in EVs, you can see it with the Honda-Nissan merger, for example. These things are really, really emblematic of where they're at. They're really dramatic developments in a Japanese context. And of course, these things will only be accentuated by what's happening in China and the US under Trump. The very quick version on the Trump administration is I do believe these tariffs will be rolled out all the way through the course of this year and beyond. In my view, what will happen is that it will move Japan and Australia closer together over the duration of the Trump administration. And so we're in prime position, given our achievements. This was strategic. It was by design, as I said at the AGM. It's not the case that we lucked into this. There was a lot of foresight involved. And I think where we are now is absolutely ideal in terms of maximizing the disruptions and optionality in the global supply chain, particularly for fluorite. On the Speewah Fluorite Project, Andy and Wolfram asking, these are very good questions about how to think about valuation, project delivery, the JV itself. Briefly to Andy's question, of course, now that we've memorialized the terms, Andy, with Japan, they will not move. If there is resource extension, which we obviously fully expect, their entry point, reflects that potential. If it wasn't there, then there's absolutely no way we would have been able to command the deal terms that we did. And I want to emphasize as well, Andy, that we're so fortunate to be working with Sumitomo in the way that we are. It's true, there were other suitors, there still are, both in Japan and, the largest fluorite company in the world has been knocking down at our door. And of course, we're very happy with where we are, because it is a true partnership. It's based on trust and respect, and that was characterized in the nature of the announcement that we made. So we want Sumitomo to make money with us. Of course, we want them to have a great journey, as we do with our shareholders as well. A JV partner is someone that you really prioritize all the way through in their diligence, in facilitating their offtake, in understanding their objectives. And so we're absolutely committed to ensuring they have a fantastic journey with us. And of course, the price is the price. On the project delivery model, just some nomenclature here. As we get into the construction phase, which is next year, guys, if you can believe that, it's how fast we're moving. The differentiation is between EPC and EPCM, and these are the sorts of things I'm working through with Stefan and with Mike and with the various contractors we've got involved. At the end of that is when you move into discussions about owner-operator or an alliance model. These things are all being discussed in terms of capabilities, timeframes. We do want to absolutely leverage the local contractors as much as possible, and we do think we can. So all of that discussion and planning is underway, and it's a parallel work stream. No decisions. It's absolutely premature. The thing that we've got to get to is a mining plan being approved by the WA government. That's when we can go ahead and commence building, whether it's the road, the camp, or the mine itself. And of course, ahead of that is traditional owner, ILUAs, environmental approvals, all of the good stuff that we've been working on for 18 months. So we're paralleling everything, and then we are conceptualizing. It's a very good question, what the delivery model looks like and with who. That all those discussions are underway. Absolutely, they're not just discussions; they're negotiations. Okay, so next is Sandover Fluorite Project. Now, listen, I've addressed this already very extensively. I knew this was a big area of questions, and because I've already spent quite a lot of time rating the journey, particularly that idea of mapping for 6 months, drilling for maybe 6 to 9, and then straight into a scoping study. I think the journey's very well articulated, and let's see how these assay results print, and then we'll make some further decisions. But I think hopefully for So Be It, Thai Invest, Bower 3, I've already addressed this in the substantive remarks. So I'm just going to push through to the next section. For diversification of projects, now this is a good question in terms of coming back to the Lassonde chart. The aim is to get to that first revenue stream and first profits, as we discussed in 2027. highly ambitious aim, particularly first half of 27, highly ambitious. Everything would have to be perfect. And again, if we choose to go a bit slower to optimize the outcomes, of course, that's going to be a very logical choice. But if we get to that first revenue and profits, we're completely out of capital markets at that point. I think the Sandover Fluorite Project is the one where you've got the strongest line of sight, because we can learn all those lessons at Speewah. There will be mistakes inevitably. We will absolutely end up with a lessons learned manual, probably this thick, coming off Speewah, and you'll pull down to Sandover and you'll be in an incredibly good position to build, I think, a second project in a critical mineral that we dominate in Australia and potentially in Asia, ex-China. So that's an incredible opportunity. I think it's within your timeframes, Blue Bagger. In terms of additional projects, listen, we have to wait and see what's beneath Mount Burn. We don't know. There would obviously be huge synergies if there was something really significant there. Again, we have to deal with the tyranny of distance, but you're right next to the railway. So we're hopeful. We can't be expectant because it's a true greenfield, exploration program. So please, to understand that, but we will endeavor to produce these assay results as quickly as possible. And we do know that the starting point is highly unusual. To have found on the surface grades like this is, it's really, really unusual in Australia. We cannot find historical precedents for the past 50 years. So let's see what happens. Project X is going to be fast, absolutely within that time frame. So there's 4. And listen, we basically uncovered 2 or 3 of these last year. So who's to say that Tivan can't do more things? Not me, that's for sure. I think we've got an incredibly malleable business model. I look around at our so-called competitors, and they can't compete for various reasons. And so there'll be many other opportunities, I believe, to either find or acquire resources in our footprint and leverage future cash flow. And the aim again is to progress these early stage projects for 2 or 3 years, so that when we are standing out on our own 2 feet in 2027, we've got that capability to really kick on and make good decisions. And again, competitive tension. Why stop at 5 potential projects? Why not have 10? There's absolutely no reason in my view. These low delta options are so important. Commodity prices move up and down. There will be disappointment at some point, not yet, but at some point perhaps. And having a portfolio of opportunities and being able to rotate quickly, work quickly, that's the future of Tivan, because we've shown we can add so much value. The valuation uplift on what we paid at Speewah for where it's now being priced by Japan, all achieved within 2 years, is so extreme that if you can rinse and repeat that model with our team successfully, of course, you do that again and again and again. So all of that's ahead. And yes, to Ty Invest's question, we might end up with 4 drilling campaigns this year. Absolutely. And to be clear, Earth AI has got their own drilling equipment at Sandover. We'd go independent at the Sandover Fluorite Project, same crew at Speewah. And if we're on track with Project X, yes, drilling towards the end of the year, I reckon. So let's see how we go. I won't spend too much time on MASCP because it's not that important, contrary to the nature of the question. We do increasingly view MASCP as a marketplace for us where we could sell vanadium batteries. There's still a lot of work to do for federal government, NT government to mature the landscape there. I believe ultimately we'll have to leverage less off new projects such as Sun Cable, but off the incumbents, particularly Impex. If Impex wants a vanadium battery, that will change the conversation, and it would make it much easier for Sun Cable to get going as well. We are still working closely with Sun Cable. We're absolutely a major proponent at Middle Arm, but contrary to the way the question's phrased, it is absolutely not critical to us. What's critical to us is Speewah Fluorite, and then the Sandover complex in general. Project X, I think, will become very important to us. And of course, the vanadium pathway, we're absolutely still on it. We'll probably make an announcement next week on the test work. And it's a slow pathway. It can change due to government. It can change due to technology. we know we've got an incredible resource, and we know if we get the first project up at Speewah, the second project will be much easier. So it's a long-term option is the way to think about it. But middle arm for us right now is not on the critical path as such. And then finally, these questions about me, very respectfully phrased. So thank you to the people that asked these questions. I can confirm tonight that I am committed to Tivan. I hope that won't come as a surprise to people. It's true, I did make some offhand comments maybe a year in, 6 months in, about other things I had to do and was planning to do 2026, 27. It was in a session like this. That was all true. I was not intending to run a mining company when I took control of TNG, but here we are. And, you know, life evolves and opportunities change. And the nature of, I guess, my own journey at this company is that firstly, I've really enjoyed it. It's been really dynamic, and I feel as though there's an opportunity to work with, you know, great people every day, which is exciting for me. I'm also in an environment where I'm learning every day, which is really valuable for me. It's what I enjoy most of all. But I'd say probably the most durable aspect of the change for me over the past 18 months when compared to the other plans that I had is that I now really believe that in this role, I can have more durable impact than what I was planning to do. And that's because of the opportunities that we've created. I think Tivan's going to be spectacular from here. I really do. And I think the board feels this too. And we can all see, you know, what we're creating. You can sort of touch it now and you can feel it. And the impacts go beyond, you know, just shareholders. It's very important. We're here for shareholders, of course. But we're impacting real people and their lives pretty much every day. And the opportunity to change for the better the way the mining sector operates, its engagement, lack of engagement currently with traditional owners, these regional remote towns, in some cases, which are really struggling. Alice, for me, obviously, there's such a strong emotional commitment between me and where I grew up, but also in the Kimberley, you know, we've got so many friends up there now, they're relying upon us. Project X is going to be the same sort of situation. So I think in this role, I can have a really durable impact. And of course, I want to see it through. So I would say tonight, in answer to these questions, that another 3 years of my leadership is effectively assured, and that I will sit down with the board at mid-year and we will work through your compensation structuring. But again, it will be in the spirit of what I alluded to in the slide above, which is it's got to be aligned. It's got to be aligned. And that will reflect right across the team as well. And yeah, one of the other aspects of this question is, yes, absolutely. In that next phase, for me, and I'm doing this already, you know, delegating as aggressively as I can. I want to bring through everyone at the company, but including into, you know, leadership positions, you know, potentially remodeling the C-suite, succession, all of those things. Absolutely, that's part of good governance. And so I'm very committed to that. I think for the next 3 months, it's about, you know, making sure that all the catalysts that we've got proximate are caught or actioned. And then we're really heading towards this exciting pathway on the core project. And then we're advancing the blue sky vision. And in that model, you've got opportunities to bring people at the team through into much more prominent positions. And of course, we've got the ability to hire. And I mean, just to give you a sense, when we advertised for geologists about a year ago, and we had like 25 applications maybe. The ads we did before Christmas, I think we had nearly 200 applications. So people are absolutely recognizing what we've achieved in the industry. That's giving us really great opportunities to build the team as part of the journey in a, you know, second phase. For me, it will be about building out all of the capabilities, particularly the executive capabilities, so that the burden can be shared and that key man risk continues to dilute. I am diluting it. It's a lot when we're achieving so much. And so I wanted to say this tonight. I did discuss this with the board before I made these comments, because I don't want at any point this year for the markets or our project partners or our financiers or government or our traditional owners to second guess my commitment to the company. They need to absolutely know that I'm here for the duration. I am now, and I'll work through all the contractual details in due course, calmly with the board, of course. But I wanted to share that tonight, so there's absolutely no shadow of a doubt. We got too much at stake for there to be even a glimmer of doubt about that. So thank you for asking that question. But yeah, hopefully that's put that to bed. So that's it. I want to wrap by stopping sharing on the screens. If I can, I'll have another tech fail. No, we really struggled tonight with technology, but maybe that's done it. Okay. And to say thanks. Thanks to everyone that's been on the journey. I'm really glad there's that level of excitement over Christmas. And yeah, just encourage you to stay the course, of course. We do have a lot of new shareholders. There'll be a lot more eyes on us, I'd say, a lot more scrutiny. But I'd say if you're really focused on the stock, try to have a healthy relationship with the stock. I know a lot of people are going to be focused on all this short-term stuff. If you're going to bed worried about it, you probably own too much. Don't get levered to it. Don't get over your skis with it. Enjoy the journey. We're all part of this journey now. That's really what it takes to build a great company, to have those relationships. So take comfort in that alignment. Take comfort in the fact that we've de-risked the company so much last year, and that we've got all of this opportunity now, and that we've got those comparative advantages. For the Speewah Fluorite Project especially, we now have the ability to say that the valuations have been endorsed by a legendary company in Japan that has vastly superior information than anyone else. And on that basis, I believe the company is now demonstrably undervalued, and it's our role to deliver those catalysts, which will help close the valuation gap, particularly over the next couple of months. So I look forward to that. I think it'll be a really, really dynamic start to the year. I expect to be back online, hopefully end Q1, April. But as need arises, if things develop even faster than we think, or if there's a lot of new information to convey, then I'll jump back online. We'll make sure all the IT is even smoother. But for now, thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for your engagement, and we will get back to work. Okay, good night.